Hello and welcome to our Open Number 5 NA RLCS recap slash review my predictions from before the weekend. There was a ton of surprises and interesting things that happened for this event, so let's unpack them all. In Group A, Schnitzelhaus Pirates, I predicted a 3-2. That's actually what happened, so A plus so far. Poab came out, won the first, won a second one later, but weren't able to get the series. It wasn't close at the end. Schnitzelhaus really came out, had a really strong event, as you'll see. Then, Shopify Rebellion versus the boys. This one was a beatdown. You can see 3 games in a row, 4-1, so not close. And I predicted Rebellion was going to win 3-2, so got that one pretty wrong. So Rebellion, first of all, the boys came out and looked really, really good. And Rebellion looked really, really bad. So you add those two things together, and that's why the boys went very far in this tournament. We'll get to that later, right? Then Genji over deleted. I had 3-1. That was accurate. It was a 3-1. You can see those games were relatively close. There was 2 OTs. Looks like both of those were technically kickoff goals. Well, maybe not 30 seconds in. Where's the threshold for when something's not a kickoff goal? Is it a kickoff goal if you take the possession and score it, right? That's a kickoff goal. But if you take the possession and then they counterattack and score, is that a kickoff goal? I don't know. You let me know what you think. Anyways, NRG Sim Talk, I had 3-1. It was actually a 3-0. NRG came out, looked pretty good, although these matches were all relatively close. You can see here, 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. Interesting scoring, right, so far. So then in the uppers, if we just kind of stay rolling here, I had Rebellion beating Schnitzelhaus 3-2. Obviously, Rebellion lost in the first round, so it was Schnitzelhaus versus the boys. The boys came out. This was a really interesting series. Schnitzelhaus came out strong, but the boys ended up reverse sweeping in the best of 5, and good for them. NRG Genji I had as a 3-1. That's exactly what happened, and they were all relatively close games, but you can see they got skunked the 3 wins. NRG played really good defense, and I think Genji also struggled to score some open nets, if I'm remembering from that series. Or there was a lot of close stuff that I think Genji probably could have capitalized on, but NRG has got that cockroach defense where they just don't die on the goal line. So then, looking at the lower quarters, so obviously I picked Rebellion. They ended up not qualifying, as you can see here. So Pirates on a boat versus the boys. I thought the boys were going to get knocked out. So that's maybe the first or the second bad prediction. The first bad prediction is that Rebellion was going to go to playoffs. They didn't. My second bad prediction was that the boys were going to get double eliminated, and they went to the top 4. So that was also a bad pick, arguably a worse pick than Rebellion. And you'll see how that affects my bracket, right, by putting them further. So anyways, this doesn't really work as well. I had SimTalk beating deleted, but they actually got swept. So SimTalk +1, rough for them. I think they'll come back and be stronger next year. And maybe have a better team name as well. Then I had Genji over Pirates 3-1 to qualify out. It was a 3-0 to qualify out, so swept them there. Not super close. Genji looked good after they kind of took the loss to NRG there. Schnitzelhaus over deleted. I actually had Schnitzelhaus over SimTalk +1, but as I predicted a 3-2, it's not too far off. So I was actually 3 out of 4 here. I had obviously Rebellion, which ended up bombing out. I had the boys. If you told me Rebellion was going to lose in the uppers, I'd say, okay, well, I'm pretty sure they'd still qualify through the lowers. Obviously, that didn't happen, so disappointing results for them. They're going to have to really go back to the drawing board and figure out what they can do differently. I don't know if they've got to have maybe a look at qualifying for Worlds. I don't think, well, maybe they have a look at Raleigh if they win the next event, but I don't think from what we've seen that's very likely. So that's Group A. Gonna give myself like a C because, well, maybe a D plus. Group B, Space Station 3-0 Bubble Sort. Predicted that. Strictly Biz 3-1ing. Sorry, Complexity 3-1ing Strictly Biz. I predicted that. That's accurate. Now, here's where my bracket gets absolutely blown up. The Ultimates had to forfeit their game to Little Step Bros. That's right. Little Step Bros advanced. So all the comments from my last video that were saying, oh, Little Step Bros got to win, Little Step Bros going to win. I hope you're happy. I hope you got what you wanted, because that really blew up my bracket for that to happen. And my understanding is LJ had internet issues. He wasn't able to get them resolved in time for check-in. He had to go to an internet cafe or some sort of gaming cafe or something like that, where they would have, a PC and a computer he could play on, an stable internet he could play on. And so they had to forfeit this series, and it kind of blew up this bracket, unfortunately. So then SOS Team Evo. I thought SOS was going to get the nod over Evo. Evo came out and looked good. You can see these matches weren't anything too crazy. Not the most interesting matchup of all time. Evo ended up sweeping them, so not too surprising. I didn't have SOS coming through, but so not a big deal for them to not win there. Then in the uppers, I had Space Station 3-2 in Complexity. That's exactly what happened. This matchup's always super fun to watch because of the history with Frosty being on Complexity now, when he was on SSG before, and Kofor took his spot, or they replaced him with Kofor. So this series is always going to be interesting to watch over time, as those two players are younger players and they have a lot of talent. So we kind of get to see like them going back and forth there. So that was close. This was probably the most meme-worthy moment, where Lil Step Bros went up 2-1 on Team Evo, and it really looked like they were going to be in the top playoff bracket, top 8 team. But Evo decided to lock in and closed out the series there at the end. And yeah, I don't have much to say about this series. You should watch it. It's pretty entertaining. I was actually watching the Johnny Boy stream of this matchup, and his commentary was pretty funny on it. So I would encourage you to check it out if you haven't seen it. Just as a reminder, Lil Step Bros was kind of more of a meme team because it has Alpha Kep, the streamer, on it. And, they're playing good. Guh looked really good. T. Carell looked really good. Kep had some good plays in there, but I didn't expect them to qualify. So this section right here, I got completely wrong. The two teams I expected to advance did not advance, so that kind of screws up my whole bracket right here, especially in the lowers. Strictly Biz, I predicted a 3-1 over Bubble Sort. It was really a 3-2, so that was a little bit close. Then I had Lil Step Bros down here, not the Ultimates. And then I had Evo instead of SOS. Knowing that the Ultimates went to the lowers, I would still predict the Ultimates to go through and qualify. They usually don't flame out that hard. So that was these two teams didn't get to. These two teams played each other up here rather than there. I did predict Evo to beat Lil Step Bros, which is what happened in the uppers. I predicted it to happen in the lowers, but obviously we've recovered that 100 times now. So SOS, Strictly Biz, I predicted Strictly Biz to qualify 3-2 here. They went over Lil Step Bros after their loss to Evo here, and 3-1. Not super close. You can see the score was pretty high. 6, 4, and 7 goals in Strictly Business's wins. Strictly Business looked really good. They also went extremely far in this tournament. Now, this I had Complexity qualifying through. As you can see, Complexity did not make it through here. Their bracket kind of got skunked by the Ultimates. And as you can see, the last game, Ultimates Complexity was very close. It would have been great if this could have been a best of 7, but really tough luck for Complexity to draw Ultimates in the lowers. Complexity seems to always like the most difficult runs. They had Strictly Business, quality team, Space Station, quality team, and Ultimates, quality team. And they went 1 and 2, weren't able to advance. So very unfortunate for them. I'm almost positive if Little Step Bros or SOS was down in that situation, Complexity won without a problem against those two teams. So just very unfortunate bracket run for Complexity. I really hope they get a nice regame in Open 6 to get enough points to qualify to go to Raleigh, because I think they deserve it. If anyone got screwed because of this bracket, it's definitely Complexity. But if you feel differently, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. So here I had Space Station, Ultimate, Strictly Biz, Complexity. It was Space Station, Evo, Strictly Biz, and Ultimates. So I had Evo going instead. I had Complexity going, but instead Team Evo won. So 3 out of 4, but technical issues, I can't give myself too much of a downgrade. Like, I didn't predict that any of these teams were going to have technical issues and forfeit, especially Ultimate's Little Step Bros. That's like a crazy series that they had to forfeit, because they should have considered playing 2v3 or something, or had the coach they should have just had the coach play as the third or something for Ultimates, and just see if they could beat Little Step Bros. That's what I think. This page refresh. Okay, so let's talk about the playoffs now. Because my picks weren't fully accurate, we don't really get to see all these matchups, so let's just kind of talk about them. In the lower round 1, I had Schnitzel, Strictly Biz. I had Strictly Business 4-2ing Schnitzel House. It was actually a sweep. It was 4-0, and Strictly Business looked like they had really good control the whole time. Now, obviously, that's going to happen when you sweep, but didn't really feel that close, even though the score lines don't reflect that too much. You know, these games all looked relatively close. But yeah, not super surprised. And I remember saying in my previous video that I had Strictly Business going further than I thought. So we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Then also in the lower round 1, I had Complexity Gen G here. Ended up being Gen G Ultimates. And this is another kind of spicy moment from the tournament. Gen G eliminates the Ultimates at the kickoff goal there. As you can see, that was pretty incredible series. Honestly, this is a good one to watch. Maybe unless you're an Ultimates fan, but this was a good series in the tournament. Probably the best series of that day. As you can see, the other 3 series on Saturday were sweeps. So I feel like Ultimates Gen G had a little bit more drama, a little bit more backstory, and was more interesting. Now, this was bad news for me because I picked the Ultimates to win the tournament. So that's like my 4th bad pick, maybe my 5th one. But I admit they were bad picks. So what are you going to do about that? NRG Team Evos, the upper bracket. I predicted NRG Ultimates. I predicted Ultimates to 4-1 NRG because I thought NRG was going to face more opposition here in their tournament. As you can see, they got kind of a goated run to the grand final. So I thought NRG was going to get bounced down. I thought Ultimates were going to get their get back. Space Station 4-1ing over Rebellion. It was 4-0 over the boys, so they sent the boys to the lowers, which then put NRG and Space Station into the semifinals, aka the top 4. I then had, for my top 4, let me cover the lower quarterfinals. Team Evo, Strictly Business, Team Evo. This was a pretty close one. This was also a good series. Strictly Business kind of came alive towards the end, as you can see here. And Evo just couldn't quite keep up with them. 4-3, very close series. I had NRG 4-0ing Strictly Business here because I had predicted them losing in the uppers, which didn't happen. Strictly Biz, Team Evo. I would probably pick early tournament Evo, late tournament Strictly Business, if that makes sense. Because to me, Evo has a high floor, but they don't really peak super hard. Whereas Strictly Business, if they're like deep in the playoffs, I expect them to be playing very well because of the team they have. Then lower bracket quarterfinals, another interesting situation happened here. Obviously, I had the Ultimates right here. They didn't even they got eliminated in that lower bracket earlier, so that wasn't a possible matchup. I had them beating Gen G when the boys, I had Rebellion losing to Gen G. Rebellion didn't qualify for playoffs or top 8. And then Gen G ended up lost a close match to the boys. This was probably one of the more fun, interesting matches to watch for the whole weekend, I thought. So if you could only watch a couple, I think the boys Gen G was really good. And the boys should be Really proud of this result because beating Gen G in a best of 7, 4-3, really good result for them, and they should be proud of that. And they continued to go on. And so the top 4 was kind of a interesting top 4. I predicted Space Station, NRG, Ultimates, Gen G. Kind of boring, right? What we got was more interesting. We had Space Station, Strictly Business, NRG, and the boys. So I was only 2 out of 4, which is probably the worst semifinals picks I've ever had since I've done these predictions on my channel. So this was a tough tournament for me and my results. I had Space Station beating NRG because I thought NRG was going to kind of not take it too seriously. Now, obviously, NRG go on to absolutely demolish. They 4-0 Strictly Business, and then they 4-0 Space Station in the grand finals to win. They 4-0'd the boys, and then they 4-0'd Space Station. They just looked so dominant, right? It was the NRG we saw early, Open 1, Open 2, where they just were steamrolling teams. It really does feel like if the Ultimates are not in the tournament this late, there really isn't any team that can beat NRG at this stage. Really feels like only Ultimates or Gen G can beat NRG once it gets to like a top 4 open situation. So without either of them in the semifinals because of their own losses, we have to expect NRG to win. So I predicted Space Station Ultimates for the grand final. It was Space Station NRG. On the surface level, that's not a bad pick because Ultimates or NRG, those are typically the 1 and 2 teams for NA, but it was not close. I did predict that Space Station was going to lose the grand final, but I didn't think it was going to be as dominant as it was. You can see the scoreline here. There was only one score game, 1 overtime for the sweep. NRG's got to be feeling good about that. SSG, back to the drawing board for them. They should feel good about making another grand final, but they're going to start having a mental hurdle when it comes to NRG if they want to win a grand final. I think the only thing that's very interesting to look at really quick is the points for these teams. So as you can see here, NRG has clinched the Raleigh Major with their win. 40 points. Space Station's got spot 2 with 20 points. Gen G has spot 3 with 18 points. Basically, both of these teams went grand final with NRG, right? So they have very similar point totals. Complexity has 10. Now here's where it gets interesting in the spot for 4th. Remember, we've only got one more open, one more chance for these teams to grab points. Complexity has 10. Strictly Business has 10. The boys have 10. Ultimates have 10. One of these teams has got to have a big open 6 in order to guarantee they're going to make a spot. I think we can bet on the Ultimates making it, but the boys looked really good. Strictly Business looked really good. Complexity usually has pretty high floor, usually has good results. So if they don't get such an unfortunate bracket, I think we may see Ultimates Complexity competing over this 4th slot here because they're tied for points. We expect Ultimates to typically do better. I think they'll have a bounce back. I don't expect Evo, 9 Lives, or Deleted, or Shopify Rebellion to make a run here. But if they won the tournament, they're kind of in that contention for taking a 3rd or 4th spot, which is basically what happened in the last split for Birmingham. So let me know what you think. Who of these 4 teams with 10 points, Complexity, Strictly Business, the boys, and Ultimates, who's going to take that 4th spot? I'm going to give myself a D- for my selection and my grading. Obviously picked the wrong team to win, and the team I picked to win got eliminated early in the playoffs. So not my best picks, not my best predictions. So I can at least say that without taking it too personally. Thank you so much for watching. We've got some EU Rocket League coming soon. I'll be putting out my prediction video in the next day or 2. So please subscribe if you'd like to see that. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for all the support and the kind comments, and take care.